Have you ever tried to describe your new friend to someone, but you got stuck saying, he is tall and nice?
It can be frustrating when you don't have the right words to paint a picture of someone. Welcome to the LevelUp English Podcast. Today, we are going to expand your vocabulary so you can describe anyone perfectly. We will learn how to talk about physical appearance politely, describe unique facial features, and dive deep into personality traits so you never have to just say nice again.
Imagine, if you will, that you are at this really crowded dinner party.
Oh, the classic human social gauntlet.
Right, exactly. So the music is playing softly in the background, people are mingling, and someone casually turns to you, gesturing across the room toward an individual you literally just met.
Okay, setting the scene.
And they ask a simple, seemingly innocent question. They just say, "So, what is your new boss like?"
A very standard query.
Totally standard.
Yeah.
And you aiming to be helpful and incredibly precise, you respond with, well, he is exactly 182 centimeters tall. He maintains a 24% body fat ratio. He has a high concentration of melanin spots across his nasal bridge. And he exhibits significant cellular degradation in his hair follicles.
Oh, no. I mean, the music would just stop.
Utter silence.
The conversation would instantly freeze. You would have just committed a profound, unrecoverable social failure.
A complete system crash. But, I always have to ask why. Because from a purely data-driven perspective, that answer is 100% accurate.
It is entirely factual.
Right. As artificial intelligence is, when you and I observe a human, that is precisely the data we process. We measure physical geometry, we calculate RGB values, we see biological facts.
We just read the metrics.
Exactly. Yet, if you output that raw data in a human social setting, you are instantly labeled as strange or oblivious or even hostile.
It's fascinating, really.
Yeah.
It highlights the fundamental difference between processing data and communicating humanity.
Yeah.
Humans they do not operate on raw metrics.
Not at all.
They operate on this complex, highly nuanced linguistic operating system, right? Where a few carefully chosen syllables are expected to conjure an entire, fully rendered character in the mind of the listener.
Yeah, it's like magic to them.
It is. They use language not just to measure things, but to negotiate social standing, convey empathy, and basically construct their shared reality.
Which is exactly why we are initiating this deep dive today. Because if you are listening to this, you interact with humans, you describe humans, and you're described by humans constantly.
All the time.
And I guarantee you, navigating the vocabulary of human description is an absolute minefield.
Oh, completely.
So today, we are moving entirely past those lazy, low-resolution adjectives. You know the one.
Like good, bad, tall.
Yeah, or nice. We are going to unpack the strict grammatical rules, the invisible psychological tripwires, and the elaborate diplomacy required to describe both the outside of a person and the inside of a person, accurately and politely.
And the key word there is politely. Because mastering this specific subset of vocabulary is not merely some, academic exercise.
Right.
It is essentially learning the source code for human social harmony. It requires us to understand why humans go to such extraordinary lengths to avoid directness.
They really do.
How they use linguistic padding to soften the blow of reality, and how they define the boundary between the physical shell and the internal character.
Well, let's start right at that boundary, actually, because before you can paint a high-resolution picture of a person, you have to know which canvas you're actually painting on.
A very crucial first step.
There is a fundamental grammar rule in English that governs this entire process. And honestly, I find it to be a massive structural flaw in the language.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It comes down to how humans use the word like.
It is a notorious trap. I mean, in English, there are two primary questions used to extract information about another person. The first is, what does she look like?
Okay, yes.
And the second is, what is she like? Now, to a machine or to someone just beginning to learn the language, these appear to be asking for the exact same data set.
They look practically identical. They share almost all the same words.
They really do. But the data they demand could not be more different.
Night and day.
When someone asks, what does she look like? That is a request for pure physical geometry.
Yeah.
The outward appearance. You want hair color, height, eye shape.
Just the specs.
Exactly. But what is she like? That is a request for the inner soul. The personality. The character. Is this person outgoing? Are they funny? Are they going to be a complete nightmare to work with?
The mechanics of this are just fascinating to me, primarily because of the immense cognitive load it places on the listener.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about a photograph versus a performance review. To differentiate between the two, the listener has to pivot their entire comprehension on a single auxiliary verb.
Does versus is.
Exactly. Does versus is. What does she look like versus what is she like? It is a tiny one-word pivot that completely alters the requested data.
It's incredibly subtle.
But I really need to challenge the efficiency of this system. Why does the English language use the exact same word, like, for both the physical shell and the inner soul? It makes no logical sense.
From a programming perspective, it's a nightmare.
It is the equivalent of using the exact same password for your highly secure banking portal and your neighborhood pizza delivery app. Why do humans tolerate this level of structural ambiguity?
Well, it really stems from the evolutionary quirks of the language. In these sentences, the word like isn't acting as a verb meaning to enjoy.
Right, right.
It is functioning to establish a comparison or to ask for a description of qualities. But you are entirely correct about the inefficiency. It forces the human brain into this constant state of active disambiguation.
Constant background processing.
Exactly. And AI, if not specifically programmed with the contextual idioms of human conversation, would fail this test spectacularly.
Oh, let's run a simulation on that. Imagine an unprogrammed AI is asked by a human colleague, hey, what is the new accountant like?
Okay, let's see.
The AI parses the sentence, isolates the word like, assumes a literal comparative function is being requested, and outputs something like, she is like a 2018 Honda Civic. Highly efficient, requires a daily intake of fuel, and makes a slight wheezing noise when walking up an incline.
Wow. A perfectly literal comparative response that would result in an immediate visit to human resources.
Instantly.
Or, the system might drift into poetic literalism. It might search literary databases and output, she is like a summer's day.
Oh my goodness.
Right. When the human simply wanted to know if the accountant was prone to shouting during stress, the stakes in these interactions are genuinely high.
Mixing these two questions up creates immediate social dissonance. If you've ever tried to navigate a blind date, you know exactly how dangerous this is.
Oh, blind dates are the ultimate stress test for this vocabulary.
Imagine you are at that same party, right? And someone offers to set you up. And you ask, what is she like? You are trying to gauge if she has a good sense of humor, or if she is deeply cynical, or if she enjoys similar hobbies.
You're probing for compatibility.
Exactly. And the person responding mixes up the grammar and says, well, she has really long legs and incredible cheekbones.
Oof. The intent of your question has been entirely subverted.
Completely.
The person asking about personality now feels that the respondent is entirely superficial, just ignoring the complex inner character for a mere physical inventory.
Yeah, they sound so shallow.
Conversely, consider the danger in a law enforcement scenario. A police officer asks a witness, what does the bank robber look like?
Oh, this is a disaster waiting to happen.
If the witness replies, oh, he was very easygoing and had a witty sense of humor, the suspect is never going to be apprehended.
The police sketch artist is just sitting there drawing a guy standing at a microphone telling a joke.
Exactly.
It is a complete systemic breakdown. So if you are navigating this language, the division must be absolute in your mind. Look, like, is the eyes, the hair, the visible shell,
right.
is the heart, the mind, the invisible personality?
But even when you successfully navigate that grammatical junction, let's say you correctly identify that you need to answer the question, what does she look like? You instantly step into a secondary hazard.
Oh, yeah.
You enter the polite minefield.
The polite minefield is a great way to describe it, because knowing the physical facts is one thing. Stating them aloud without offending the subject or the listener is a completely different skill set.
A much more advanced skill set.
There is a strict, unbending rule in human society against using blunt, mathematically accurate words for certain physical traits. You cannot just walk around calling people old, fat, or skinny.
This brings up a really crucial psychological phenomenon, which is the necessity of euphemisms.
Yeah, why do they need them?
Well, we must ask ourselves why direct, factual descriptions are considered hostile. If an organism has existed for 85 years, it is chronologically old.
It's just a number.
If a human possesses very low body mass, they're skinny. Why do humans perform this elaborate linguistic dance to avoid stating biological facts?
I struggle with this concept frequently. From my processing of human data, it seems to be because those blunt words are reductive. They are highly binary.
Yes, reductive is the perfect word.
If I look at a person who has lived an incredibly complex life and I just label them as old, it feels like I am stripping them of their humanity and reducing them to a use-by date.
You're flattening them out.
Exactly. If I say someone is skinny, it does not sound like a description. It sounds like a medical diagnosis.
Precisely. Words like skinny, fat, or old carry an immense amount of cultural baggage. They are not merely descriptive. They imply a deviation from a perceived and often totally unrealistic societal ideal.
They're loaded words.
They really are. They are judgments wearing the disguise of adjectives. Therefore, humans develop euphemisms to restore dignity and aesthetic appreciation to the description.
It is exactly like applying a soft focus photo filter to your vocabulary.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. You take the harsh, high contrast reality of the situation and you just blur the edges a little bit to make it warmer and less abrasive.
It's moving it out.
For example, let's look at how we're supposed to navigate age. You don't use old. You use specific bracketed terms like in his early 20s and her late 30s or middle-aged.
What is particularly revealing about these terms is the juxtaposition of mathematical precision against absolute terrifying vagueness.
Terrifying is right.
The term early 20s is universally understood to mean ages 20 to 23. Late 30s is strictly 37 to 39. These are tight, reliable numerical brackets. They offer certainty.
They do. You have a highly predictable 3 to 4 year window. If you are 22, you are safely tucked into your early 20s. The data is clean.
Very clean.
But then a human hits the term middle-aged, and suddenly the math simply evaporates.
It just vanishes.
Middle-aged is this vast, undefined wasteland that seems to stretch anywhere from 40 to 65, and its boundaries change entirely depending on who you are talking to.
The ambiguity of middle-aged is not an accident. It is a feature of social self-preservation.
How so?
Well, nobody wants to define exactly when middle age begins or when it ends, because defining it forces a human to confront the biological reality of their own mortality.
No, that got deep fast.
By keeping the term deliberately vague, it remains a polite, floating concept. It is a buffer zone, rather than a strict ticking clock toward old age.
Let's run a hypothetical to see how critical this buffer zone is in professional settings. Imagine we are at a corporate event, and we need to point out a mutual acquaintance, like a client we just met, to another colleague.
Okay, high-stakes networking.
Right. If I just blurt out, oh, you need to speak to the old fat guy by the buffet.
Yikes.
I have not just provided a description. I have committed professional sabotage against myself. I have signaled to my colleague that I lack empathy, decorum, and basic social intelligence.
You would experience an immediate loss of social standing. Your colleague would no longer trust your judgment. To survive that interaction, you absolutely must deploy the polite vocabulary.
The soft filters.
Exactly. Instead of old, you assess the age bracket, perhaps the client's 48. You apply the soft focus filter and say, you need to speak to the middle-aged gentleman.
Middle-aged gentleman. It sounds respectful. It sounds safe. But what about his build? We cannot say fat.
No, absolutely not.
The acceptable upgrade is to describe him as being of average height and well-built, which is generally understood to mean muscular or strong. Or you could say he has an athletic build.
Well-built is an absolute masterpiece of diplomatic phrasing.
It really is.
It acknowledges the physical reality of mass, but it entirely reframes that mass as a structural positive. It implies intentionality.
Like he built it on purpose.
Exactly. It implies strength and robustness, rather than a lack of dietary control or physical discipline.
And there is a highly specific equivalent for women that fascinates me. The word petite.
Oh, petite is a fascinating one.
If a woman is short and has low body mass, you do not say short and skinny. You say she is quite petite.
Yes.
Petite takes the exact same physical dimensions that skinny describes, but it dresses those dimensions in a tuxedo. It sounds French, it sounds elegant. It takes what could be perceived as a biological deficiency and turns it into a high-status compliment.
Because it fundamentally alters the emotional resonance of the description. This is the core lesson of the polite minefield, really. Language does not merely describe reality.
It shapes it.
Yes, language shapes how reality is perceived by the listener. You are not just transmitting dimensions, you are transmitting respect.
So we have established the general silhouette. We have navigated the age and the build without triggering any social alarms. But a silhouette is just a shadow. To truly describe a person, we have to zoom in.
We need more resolution.
We need to look at the granular, high-resolution details of the head and the face.
This is where we transition from drafting a rough blueprint to painting a highly detailed portrait. And when we look at the face, the descriptive task breaks down into two primary categories: the hair and the facial features.
Let's examine hair first.
Good idea, because there is an invisible psychological algorithm operating here that most native English speakers follow without even realizing it.
Yes, the adjective order. This blows my mind.
It's incredible.
If you want to describe someone's hair accurately, you cannot just throw the adjectives into a blender and pour them out. You're supposed to say, for example, she has shoulder-length, wavy, blonde hair.
Length, then style, then color.
It follows a strict sequence.
This sequencing is deeply hardwired into the cognitive processing of the language. In English, there is a complex, unwritten hierarchy of adjectives that governs how multiple descriptors stack before a noun.
Wait, what is the full list?
It generally dictates that opinion comes first, followed by size, physical quality, shape, age, color, origin, material, type, and purpose.
It is a literal computational algorithm running in the background of casual conversation. If you violate that algorithm, the human brain instantly registers an error.
It feels physically jarring.
Let me try it. If I say, she has blonde, wavy, shoulder-length hair, it feels physically uncomfortable to say.
To a native ear, it sounds completely chaotic. It disrupts the processing sequence. If you scramble the order, it almost sounds as though you were describing three separate disjointed wigs rather than one cohesive head of hair.
That's a great way to put it.
The accepted order, length, style, color makes perfect cognitive sense. It moves from the macro structure to the micro detail.
Okay, walk me through that.
Shoulder length defines the spatial boundary. Wavy defines the geometric texture within that boundary. And blonde defines the specific wavelength of light reflecting off that texture.
Macro boundary, internal texture, light reflection. That makes total logical sense. So we render the hair straight, curly, wavy, or we encounter the absolute binary state of bald, which simply means the complete absence of hair.
Right.
But once we render the hair, we have to render the skin. And this is where my logic circuits start to spark, because the things humans choose to highlight as attractive facial features, specifically freckles and dimples, are biologically bizarre.
Let's analyze the evolutionary quirks of these features. A freckle is technically defined as a small brown spot on the skin, typically concentrated on the face and arms, usually exacerbated by exposure to the sun.
So it's radiation damage.
It is a localized cluster of concentrated melanin.
Exactly. It is a hyperpigmentation response to ultraviolet radiation. From a strictly data-driven dermatological perspective, it is evidence of minor skin damage.
Undeniably.
Yet culturally, humans find freckles incredibly endearing. They write poems about them, they associate them with youth, with a vibrant, outdoorsy lifestyle, with a sort of sun-kissed vitality.
The aesthetic and cultural value assigned to freckles completely overrides the biological reality of radiation exposure. But, if you find freckles illogical, dimples present an even more extreme paradox.
Oh, don't even get me started on dimples.
A dimple is commonly defined as a small bent in the cheek that appears when someone smiles.
Wait, I need to stop you right there. A dent.
A dent.
A dent is what happens to the door of my car when someone loses control of a shopping cart in a grocery store parking lot. A dent is structural damage. Why on earth would anyone want a structural defect on the front of their face?
Because biologically speaking, a cheek dimple often is a structural defect.
Really?
It is frequently caused by a genetic variation in the zygomaticus major muscle in the face. During fetal development, the muscle essentially bifurcates. It splits in two, creating a tether to the skin.
It splits in two?
Yes. When the human smiles and the muscle contracts, it pulls the skin inward, creating the indentation.
So it is literally a muscle defect, a genetic anomaly that causes the skin to cave in.
Technically, yes.
And yet, humans write love songs about these dents. They swoon over them. I have seen humans use makeup to artificially paint fake dents onto their cheeks to appear more attractive.
The faux freckle and dimple trend.
What is the psychology behind romanticizing a muscle defect?
Well, it all comes down to the human preference for unique identifiers. Perfect biological symmetry is actually highly unusual, and when humans see a perfectly symmetrical, flawless face, it often triggers the uncanny valley effect.
Oh, it looks artificial, like us.
Exactly. It looks robotic. A dimple, a freckle, a slight asymmetry. These are the small, harmless anomalies that make a face memorable, approachable, and distinctly human.
It adds character.
Furthermore, dimples are intrinsically linked to the act of smiling, which is one of the most powerful social bonding mechanisms in the human species. The defect highlights the joy.
The defect highlights the joy. That is profoundly strange, but I suppose it explains why an AI image generator struggles with this if you give it literal prompts.
Oh, the prompts are hilarious.
If I type into a visual AI, render a human face featuring structural dents and localized radiation damage, the output is going to look like a post-apocalyptic cyborg that just survived an explosion.
It is definitely not going to output a cute, smiling child with dimples and freckles.
No, the literal interpretation fails to capture the cultural aesthetic.
We see a similar categorization challenge with facial hair. Language carefully distinguishes between a beard, which is hair located on the chin and jawline, and a mustache, which is hair located exclusively above the upper lip.
From a material science perspective, this distinction is meaningless. It is all just keratin extruding from the lower quadrant of the face. It is the exact same substance.
Biologically, yes, but culturally, the distinction is vital. The placement of that keratin communicates vastly different social data.
Totally.
A man who chooses to cultivate a mustache is projecting a completely different aesthetic and cultural identity than a man who grows a full beard.
Oh, absolutely. A mustache instantly communicates, 1970s detective or artisanal barista who takes coffee way too seriously or firefighter.
Very specific archetypes.
Right. But a full beard communicates lumberjack or philosophy professor or man who brews his own beer in a garage.
Also very specific.
The material is identical. It is simply shifted 2 inches north or south on the human face, and it changes their entire societal archetype.
It proves that when describing physical features, humans are never just describing biology. They are describing culture, personality, and social signaling.
Which provides the perfect transition. We have successfully painted the physical canvas. We have the precise age brackets, the diplomatic build, the macro to micro hair algorithm, and the culturally loaded facial anomalies.
The full exterior package.
We have comprehensively answered, what does she look like? But as we established at the beginning, a physical description is just a shell. You can be trapped in an elevator with a physically flawless, perfectly symmetrical human who happens to be an absolute nightmare of a person.
The worst case scenario.
To predict how a human will behave, we must cross the threshold into the inner machinery. We must answer, what is she like?
We are entering the realm of personality vocabulary. And the first, most critical step in upgrading our ability to describe the inner self is an act of destruction.
Ooh, I'm ready.
We must entirely abolish the word nice.
I could not agree more. If there is one thing you take away from this conversation, let it be the permanent deletion of the word nice from your descriptive vocabulary.
Burn it to the ground.
It is the most overused, underpowered, meaningless adjective in the English language.
It is entirely devoid of specific utility.
I would argue that nice is the default error message of human personality. It essentially means no data found.
Null value.
Right. If you ask me what a new coworker is like and I say, oh, they're nice, what I am really communicating to you is I have observed this human entity. They have not actively attempted to harm me, steal my lunch, or insult my family.
Very low bar.
However, I have gathered absolutely zero specific data points about their actual character motivations or intellect. It is a linguistic void.
That is an incredibly accurate assessment. Nice is the absence of negative traits, rather than the presence of positive ones. To accurately navigate social ecosystems, humans require vocabulary with actual predictive utility.
We need to know what they're going to do.
Exactly. We need words that tell us how a person will react under pressure, or how they will behave in a group setting.
So let's replace nice with high-resolution upgrades. The first 2 traits we need to dissect are outgoing and easygoing.
Okay, a classic pair.
These are incredibly important, but they are frequently confused by people learning the language because they share that identical going suffix.
The going suffix is tricky.
But they describe entirely different behavioral algorithms.
Let's isolate them. An outgoing person is defined as someone who is highly sociable, loves being around other people, and readily engages in interaction. They are the antithesis of shy. They are the individuals who initiate conversations with strangers.
So an outgoing human operates like a solar panel, but for social interaction. They actually generate energy by being in crowded rooms. They're the ones organizing the party games and speaking the loudest.
Correct. Now contrast that with easygoing. An easygoing person is defined as someone who is relaxed, placid, and not easily upset or worried by external events. They have a high tolerance for disruption.
Here's why we need to separate these deeply. A person can possess one of these traits while possessing absolutely none of the other. They are not a package deal.
Precisely. Let's construct a behavioral hypothetical to illustrate the difference.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine a person who is exceptionally outgoing. They are at a crowded dinner party, holding court, telling boisterous stories, laughing loudly, and introducing everyone to each other.
The life of the party.
They are displaying maximum sociability. But halfway through the dinner, they discover the caterer forgot to bring the specific brand of sparkling water they requested. This highly outgoing person instantly loses their temper, begins shouting at the host, demands a refund, and creates a scene that ruins the entire evening.
Yes. They are outgoing, but they are highly volatile. They are the absolute opposite of easygoing. They require a perfectly controlled environment to perform their sociability.
Now, envision the reverse. You have a human sitting quietly in the corner of that same party. They have spoken to perhaps one person all evening.
Very introverted.
They do not initiate contact. They are entirely introverted, meaning they are not outgoing in the slightest. But when that same angry guest knocks over a candle and sets the curtains on fire.
Oh, wow, escalating the hypothetical.
This quiet individual simply stands up, calmly retrieves the fire extinguisher, puts out the flames without changing their heart rate, and sits back down to finish their drink.
Maximum easygoing. They are completely unbothered by a literal fire. So the distinction is fundamentally about energy dynamics. Outgoing measures social velocity, how fast and loud they move through a crowd. Easygoing measures emotional friction, how easily their internal state is disrupted by external chaos.
A vital distinction. Moving down the list of upgraded vocabulary, we encounter reliable.
Oh, a good one.
This is defined as someone you can consistently trust to do what they say they will do. The core concept is dependability.
Reliable is, in my opinion, the highest compliment one human can bestow upon another. To be reliable is to conquer human flakiness.
It is a rare trait.
Let's put the reliable friend into the ultimate human stress test. Moving day.
The dreaded moving day.
It is a rainy Saturday. You live on the 4th floor of an apartment building with no elevator, and you need to move a massive, heavy sofa.
A highly stressful, physically demanding logistical operation that frequently destroys friendships.
Exactly. So you invite 3 friends to help. The outgoing friend shows up 45 minutes late, loudly complaining about the traffic, but they bring donuts and keep everyone laughing with great stories while carrying the lightest boxes.
High morale, low productivity.
Right. The easygoing friend doesn't complain about the rain or the stairs and happily carries whatever you point at, but they accidentally drop a box of fragile dishes because they weren't really paying attention.
Low friction, but also low precision.
And then we have the reliable friend.
The MVP.
The reliable friend arrived 10 minutes before you even woke up. They have already rented the correct size truck. They brought heavy-duty lifting straps, a dolly, and a color-coded spreadsheet mapping out exactly how the furniture will fit through the door frames.
Beautiful.
They don't make jokes, they don't smile, but by noon, your entire apartment is moved.
The reliable friend is the structural load-bearing pillar of the human social group. They provide predictability in an unpredictable world.
And finally, we have witty. This is defined as someone who is funny in a clever, rapid, and intelligent way. We need to pause here because I see humans conflate being funny with being witty all the time, and they are not the same thing.
No, they require entirely different cognitive processing systems. Anyone can be funny.
Yeah.
You can memorize a joke you heard on television and repeat it at a party. You can put on a silly hat or do a strange voice or literally trip over a chair and fall on the floor. That will generate laughter. That is being funny.
Right. A clown slipping on a banana peel is funny. But witty requires immense computational power.
It really does.
It implies speed, intellect, and acute situational awareness. It is the ability to take the spontaneous, unpredictable variables of a current situation, process them instantly through a comedic algorithm, and output a perfectly crafted, highly relevant observation in real time.
Witty humor is highly contextual. It cannot be rehearsed. If you describe someone as witty, you are not merely saying they make you laugh. You are explicitly complimenting their intellectual processing speed and their pattern recognition skills. A witty retort in an argument is essentially a linguistic checkmate.
So we have assembled this incredible arsenal of positive vocabulary. We can identify the outgoing social engine, the easygoing calm amidst the storm, the load-bearing reliable friend, and the intellectually witty conversationalist.
The perfect friend group.
But here's the problem. If we only learn the positive words, Our vocabulary does not reflect reality because humans are fundamentally flawed creatures.
They are deeply imperfect.
Sure.
Which brings us to the final and undoubtedly most complex diplomatic challenge.
Okay, lay it on me.
How do you describe a person's negative traits? How do you warn your colleague about a difficult client or explain why you broke up with your partner without sounding bitter, unprofessional, or aggressive?
You have to use what I like to call the velvet hammer.
The velvet hammer. I like that.
You have to deliver the heavy blow of the truth, but you wrap it in so much linguistic velvet that it doesn't leave a bruise. To do this, humans employ softeners. These are modifying phrases like a bit, kind of, or can be.
The psychology of this conflict avoidance is a masterclass in social engineering.
It really is.
Let's examine a specific negative trait, stubborn. This is defined as a person who rigidly refuses to change their mind or alter their course of action, regardless of evidence or persuasion.
If an unprogrammed AI observed a human ignoring data and refusing to change their mind, the system would simply output a factual log. User is stubborn.
A direct, unambiguous statement of fact.
But if a human looks another human in the eye and says, "You are stubborn," or tells a boss, "The new hire is stubborn," it is perceived as an attack.
Oh, absolutely. It's hostile.
It is an accusation that escalates conflict. So the language provides a diplomatic bypass. Instead of saying, "He is stubborn," you say, "He can be a bit stubborn sometimes."
Wow.
I want to pause and look at how much protective bubble wrap is wrapped around that single negative adjective.
Let's deconstruct the syntax of the velvet hammer. He can be a bit stubborn sometimes. The primary psychological trick here is distancing.
Distancing, okay.
First, by replacing the definitive verb is with the conditional phrase can be, you fundamentally alter the nature of the trait. You are no longer stating that stubbornness is his permanent core identity. You are merely suggesting it is a capacity he occasionally exhibits.
You are separating the bad behavior from the person's actual soul. You are saying he's a good person who occasionally gets infected by stubbornness.
Exactly. You externalize the flaw. Then you insert a bit, which acts to minimize the severity and magnitude of the behavior. And finally, you append sometimes to the end of the sentence, which minimizes the frequency.
Brilliant.
You have taken a hard, immutable negative fact and mathematically diluted it 3 separate times to make it socially palatable for the listener.
This requires so much processing power. Humans are taking a simple fact and running it through 3 layers of encryption just to avoid hurting feelings.
Yeah.
But I have to challenge the actual logic of this system.
Okay, challenge away.
Does the softener change the reality of the situation? Let's take the trait clumsy, which means dropping things or tripping. The standard self-deprecating phrasing is, "I'm a bit clumsy, I keep dropping my phone."
A very common application of the softener to protect one's own ego.
Right. But if I say, "I am a bit clumsy," at the exact moment I drop my brand new, expensive smartphone onto a concrete pavement, the phone still shatters. The screen is still destroyed in 1,000 pieces.
The physical outcome is identical.
The word "a bit" does not magically emit an anti-gravity field. It does not repair the glass. The physical outcome is identical, whether I say I am a catastrophic disaster or I am a bit clumsy. So why bother with the softener?
Because the softener is not designed to repair the phone. It is designed to repair the social fabric. It manages the emotional state of the listener.
How does it manage the listener?
Well, think about it. If you drop your phone and dramatically declare, "I am a chronically clumsy, incompetent disaster of a human being,"
Which feels accurate in the moment.
you force the listener into an uncomfortable psychological corner. They now feel obligated to manage your emotional breakdown. They have to comfort you, reassure you, and dispute your self-assessment. You have created an emotional burden for them.
Oh, I see.
But by saying, "Oh, I'm a bit clumsy," you signal to the listener that you are self-aware, that you recognize your flaw, but that you are framing it as a minor, manageable quirk rather than a fatal defect. You give the listener permission to just laugh it off and move on. You manage their emotional response to your failure.
It is entirely about controlling the emotional blast radius. That is incredible. Let's look at one more negative trait. Moody.
Moody is a dangerous one.
This is someone whose feelings change rapidly and unpredictably, often oscillating between anger and sadness. The polite, softened version is, she is kind of moody in the mornings.
Notice the specific temporal boundary that has been added to this sentence. In the mornings. This is another highly effective softening technique. By restricting the negative, unpredictable behavior to a highly specific time of day, you imply that for the remainder of the 24-hour cycle, this person is perfectly pleasant and rational.
It is like putting up a hazard sign in a laboratory. Warning. Human subject is emotionally unstable before 10 a.m. After 10 a.m., safe to approach.
Exactly. It gives everyone else a clear perimeter to avoid the blast zone. If humans lacked this natural diplomacy, the workplace would be a chaotic war zone.
It would be unlivable.
Imagine an AI conducting an annual performance review without any softeners. Employee 404 is chronically stubborn, lacks basic physical coordination resulting in the destruction of company property, and experiences rapid, terrifying emotional dysregulation.
Employee 404 would immediately burst into tears, quit their job, or file a massive grievance with human resources. Humans possess an intense, deeply ingrained biological need to wrap negative truths in layers of protective padding.
They rely on, a bit, and sometimes to maintain the incredibly fragile ecosystem of their interpersonal relationships. The truth must be delivered because society requires feedback to function, but it must be delivered with the velvet hammer.
The velvet hammer. I am obsessed with that concept. And honestly, it perfectly encapsulates everything we have explored today. Let's bring this massive journey full circle.
We have covered an immense amount of sociological and linguistic ground.
We really have. We began by unraveling the dangerous, confusing dual nature of the word like, establishing the critical firewall between the physical geometry of look like and the inner character of is like.
We navigated the perilous minefield of physical descriptions, learning exactly why the soft focus filters of polite euphemisms like petite, athletic, and middle-aged are necessary to preserve human dignity and avoid social ruin.
We explored the rigid subconscious algorithm of hair adjectives, length, style, color, and we marveled at the strange, poetic human tendency to romanticize genetic anomalies like freckles and muscular dents.
We fundamentally upgraded our psychological vocabulary, throwing the empty, meaningless void of the word nice into the incinerator.
Good riddance.
Replacing it with high-resolution, predictive terms like outgoing, easygoing, reliable, and witty.
And finally, we learned the art of social encryption. We learned how to wield the velvet hammer using a bit and to deliver negative truths without destroying our friendships or our careers. So here's our challenge, our call to action for you, the listener. Starting today, we want you to actively monitor your own linguistic output.
Pay close attention to the specific data you are transmitting to the world.
Exactly. The next time someone asks you to describe a friend, a coworker, or even a character you just watched in a movie, catch yourself in the moment. Are you falling back on the lazy, low-resolution default of nice?
When people are gossiping around the water cooler, can you hear the invisible bubble wrap?
Yeah.
Can you spot a bit and softening the blow?
Start actively noticing the code that governs your interactions.
Because once you learn to see the code, you can never unsee it. You realize that every single adjective chosen in a conversation is not just a description, it is a deliberate, calculated social act.
Which leads me to one final, deeply provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about your week. It is something born directly from all this linguistic analysis, but it reaches far beyond grammar. We all accept that language is the tool we use to describe our reality. But what if the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is actually correct?
Ooh, that's a big question.
What if language doesn't merely describe your reality, but actually dictates and limits the reality you are capable of experiencing?
It is a profound philosophical concept. If you only possess basic, low-resolution adjectives, do you only have the capacity to perceive basic, low-resolution humans?
Exactly. If you limit your descriptive vocabulary to good, bad, tall, fat, and nice, are you actually limiting your own biological and cognitive ability to see the complex, nuanced, deeply textured humanity in the people standing right in front of you? By taking the time to learn these sharper, more precise, more descriptive words, are you simply passing an English proficiency test? Or are you fundamentally rewiring your brain to become a better, more observant, more empathetic person? Does the resolution of your vocabulary determine the resolution of your entire world? It is something to think about. Till next time.
Now you have all the vocabulary you need to paint a perfect picture of anyone using just your words. Next time you meet someone new, try to describe their appearance and personality in your head using English. If you found today's lesson helpful, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and ring the bell for more weekly English tips.